So this submission is for my digital fabrication module, and the group that I'm in explores Japanese joinery, and so this is my portfolio so far. Oh, I feel absolutely relieved. There's no better feeling than just clicking that submission button and just going to bed. I literally feel absolutely, I feel like a broken man. Good morning, people. I think it's a bit late. We definitely know it's a deadline week when it's literally 10:30 in the morning and I can't get myself out of bed. I'm looking like this. I've been going to bed at 3 AM for the past 5-6 nights and I feel absolutely knackered. But I'm going to take you guys along with me today because I thought, you know what, just pick up the camera, let's film my day and talk through my deadline, my submission, show you a bit of work, and let's do this. First I need to wake up a bit. Oh. A bowl of Weetabix and a bit of fruit with oat milk. Oat milk is the key, people. Personally, milk doesn't settle well in my stomach, let's say. And oat milk is seeming to be okay so far. So I switched to oat milk. It's great. Lovely way to start the day. Nice bit of Weetabix and fruit. And the time is currently 11:30 now because I've been faffing around, running to the shop, etc. But now I've got to crack through this breakfast and get on some work. Okay, so although that was literally a couple of seconds for you guys, I've literally been sat here since, what was it, 11:30. The time is now 6 o'clock, literally straight staring at the screen, and I feel like I'm literally going insane. This is literally what architecture does to you. Staring at a screen all day, it can't be good. But anyway, now I've done a decent amount, I thought I'd sit down and talk through the submission with you guys. Okay, people, so yes, my portfolio submission is on Monday. Today is Friday. The time is currently, of course, 6 o'clock, and I've got my submission on Monday. So I've literally got like 3 days left. However, my aim is to try and get it done tomorrow night, maybe even tonight at a push. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest, because I don't want it to come to Sunday. I don't want to wake up on Sunday morning and think, oh my word, I've got so much work to do, because that is the worst thing, day before deadline. I don't want to be stressing. I want to have a nice Sunday, relax, watch some football, etc. So I thought, a lot of the time I talk about my work, but I never really show what I've been up to. So I thought, I've done a decent amount this week. I've got a portfolio submission almost ready. And so I thought I'd just sit down and show you through this portfolio submission. So this submission is for my digital fabrication module. And the group that I'm in explores Japanese joinery and how we can use Japanese joinery to reduce the use of resin, gluing, bolts, etc. within a structural system, and also how effective Japanese joinery is and how actually strong it is. It's actually unbelievable, and it also looks actually really nice. It's quite aesthetic. So I'm going to talk through my portfolio here, and basically we've got to assemble something ourselves. We've got to build and assemble something ourselves using Japanese joinery. So basically some kind of architecture construct or just a piece of furniture or whatever. I'm not quite sure what my final thing is, but you'll kind of see what the gist is. It's kind of like a table, maybe a plant pot stand or something like that. So I've basically called my project the assembly manual, because essentially it is assembly manual, how all these pieces come together. And I'm just going to talk through this and basically all of the assignments that we've had to submit, and how I've got from kind of A to B. So essentially, this is basically just the portfolio setup, contents page, etc. So assignment 1 and 2 tasks us to explore Japanese joinery and basically look at the different types of joinery and how effective they are and what their uses are, and basically wants to start modeling and drawing and basically exploring and understanding Japanese joinery as a whole. And so that's what these pages are essentially. And then assignment 3 and 4, they wanted us to produce some kind of model using laser cutting and layering of pieces to kind of explore Japanese joinery in a 3D form, in a physical form, and start testing out ourselves by producing something physical. And essentially, I've just done a kind of like assembly manual of how all these pieces come together, kind of like an IKEA manual, just showing the layering of information. So this here is my first kind of initial idea, and as you can see here, this is 1.5 mil plywood, and so this is 4 layers of 1.5 mil ply, and I basically laid them up to produce these joineries and these pieces here that will all come together to produce this thing. That's what I'm going to call it, this thing, because I'm not quite sure what it is. So as you can see, there's 3 kind of sections, section A, B, C. So I've broken those components down into A components, B components, and C components, and basically how these pieces are going to come together. So as you can see, A and B are very, very similar. And then just basically showing the different types of joints and how these, basically how my model is exploring Japanese joinery and how these things are coming together. So as you can see here, A, B, C, and then this is the laser cutting setup, the preparation, and then me actually laser cutting. So I did 2 tests for this. The first one I did was far too small, and I actually laser cut it on 0.8 plywood, which I hadn't realized how small it was, and it was basically very flimsy, it would fall apart. And I had to redo the design because it was just so flimsy and just wasn't very sturdy at all. But I did actually produce quite a cool animation, a stop motion animation. So I'll put that on the screen for you now, which I think is quite effective to show how these pieces come together. As you can imagine, this took me absolutely ages to produce, just literally cutting up every frame by frame. But you kind of get the gist of how this thing will come together. And then I adjusted that 3D cut file ever so slightly, added some different types of joinery in just to make it a little bit more sturdy. And yeah, this was kind of like the final form from that laser cutting task. And then they wanted us to go into part B, which is an individual study task. So basically exploring and continuing exploring what we've done previously with producing that laser cutting model, but turning it into something that could be actually CNC'd, following the regulations of the CNC, and the, what's the word? And how we can actually start to put something together using Japanese joinery at kind of like a real size. So my final thing is going to be literally like 70 centimeters tall, which is actually quite big. But this basically explores kind of testing and prototyping, etc. So we did some 3D models, or 3D printing, to show how these kind of models could be, or how they could look in a 3D format. And some were more successful than others. So this one was fairly successful. It was quite a simple one. This is basically just the same as what I did in a laser cutting format. This one I tried to basically make more fluid because I think it looked quite nice fluid, and I wanted to do a different iteration. But as you can see, I did the legs far too small, and it just fell apart. The 3D printer didn't like it, and it just wasn't basically thick enough, and there was no support for the legs, and so it just fell apart completely. And so here in my 3rd iteration, you can see I got a central piece, which actually made it successful. It actually came together because it had this kind of support piece here for the 3D printer to kind of rest on as it came up. And so I kind of ran with this final 3D model here as my final design, but I still tweaked it slightly so I could be able to CNC it. So this was like the final form which I decided on. And very similarly to what I did for the laser cutting, I basically produced some kind of assembling manual to show how these pieces would come together if you were to CNC it. And so as you can see here, once again, you've got the A components, B components, and C components. And these are all, there's 3 kind of layers of, I think it's 10 mil plywood. So each piece would be about 30 mil thick. And then the whole thing would be about 70 centimeters tall. And then you've got all the components coming together. You've got the A components, and you can see here the different types of Japanese joinery pieces that I've got. And I started to use pins to lock pieces into place. So rather than using glue and resin, if you use a pin, you can literally use the friction of the wood to bash this pin into place, and the joints are not going to move one bit. It's literally locked into place, and that is the beauty of Japanese joinery. It's super very structurally sound, and it's not going to move. It's pretty secure. So as you can imagine, when you put these pieces in, when they lock into place, and then you bash a pin in, it's not going to move at all, because you're never going to be able to get that pin out. So as you can see here, these pieces come together, and you've got kind of 4 rotations of that, and you can see here, and then this kind of central piece here that kind of just sits on top to create that final piece there. And then it's very similar for component B, but it's just kind of flipped over. because it's the top piece. And then the legs, I needed a central piece as kind of explored in the 3D model. And so I created this kind of central piece here, which is very simple. It's just literally two pieces locking together like that with pinholes in. And then you've got four legs that are basically just pinned to that. And you've got the joinery at the top and the bottom to lock into the other pieces. So as you can see here, these pieces locking together. And then you've got the B, C, and the A construction. And then you got it finally assembled. And then you've got this exploded axonometric. And so this is my portfolio so far. I've probably got another 5 pages to do where I actually have to show how this thing could be CNC'd. Show it on RhinoCam and how the machine would cut these pieces. So I'll probably just do an example of 1 or 2 pieces to show how it could be cut. Because my model is quite repetitive, they're quite repetitive pieces. There's no point me doing like multiple examples of it. So yeah, that is pretty much what I'm up to at the moment. I've got 2 days or 3 days left to finish it, or 2 full days to finish it before it's submitted on Monday. So I think I'm in an okay position. I think I'm in a decent position, but I've just got to do the CNC stuff, which is where it's going to come around and bite me in the bum, because a lot of the time you can design something amazing, you think it's great. If the CNC doesn't like it, it doesn't like it. It's not going to cut it. Okay, people, it's getting pretty late now. It's now 1 o'clock in the morning, and this is obviously just typical deadline week. I probably could have avoided this. I probably could have gone to sleep, but I'm just determined to get as much done as humanly possible by tonight, so I can finish it tomorrow and get it submitted tomorrow night, so I can literally have Sunday off to relax. I've made some good progression, but it's getting to that point of the night where my productivity is dipping. I always find that like after 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, my productivity just dips, and I start looking around and faffing around with stuff, and I'm not actually productive. So that is the sign personally for me to stop for the day, turn off my laptop for the evening, and just get myself ready for bed, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. Ooh. Okay, it's chucking it down. I've got tied it up. It's 7:30 and we're almost there. This is what I've got going for the render. So I've set up all the materials, all the plywood, etc. And this is it rendering at the moment. As you can see, all the black stripes, because then it will hopefully appear looking okay. So this is what I've literally spent all day on, adding all the materials to this, and all the one thing that took so long is because along the side I've got one material, and then the top I've got a different material, because I wanted to show the layering of plywood. But yeah, this is today's work. It's peeping through, it's looking nice, but we've still got 17 minutes left. So I've been sat here thinking, you know what, it's deadline week, it's a Saturday night, I've hardly eaten today, so let's go and grab a Chipotle. I'm going to sit down and enjoy this one. You can't go a deadline week without having some kind of takeaway. It's like a religion for an architecture deadline week. I'm going to enjoy this. Look at that bad boy. So as you guys would have just seen, as I've made some pretty good progress on the visualizations, the renders, and I think they're actually looking quite nice. I'm not gonna lie, I'm quite happy with them. I think the plywood and the kind of thickness of the plywood, and you can see like the layering and the build up of the plywood looks really nice in the renders. And I've made 2 different kind of colors of plywood to make it a little bit more of an interesting render. So I think it's looking nice personally, and that is it done. I think it's getting to that point in the submission where I start looking through all of the briefs and all of the submissions, and just to make sure 100% that I haven't missed anything out, I haven't forgotten anything, something silly and something stupid like that, and kind of messed up the page numbers or something ridiculous like that. So I'm going to spend the next half an hour checking everything through just to make sure everything's okay, and then I'm going to submit. The time is currently 1 AM on Saturday night, so Sunday morning. Okay people, this is the moment of truth. Upload and preview, confirm, submission complete. Look at that. Oh, I feel absolutely relieved. There's no better feeling than just clicking that submission button and just going to bed. I literally feel absolutely, I feel like a broken man. But I'm also very happy that I've got it done at 2 AM. Yeah, at 2:30 on Saturday night, i.e. Sunday morning, which means that tomorrow I can just enjoy the day, relax, do what I want, not have to think about work, which is absolutely fantastic. So submission done, my second submission of my master's degree, which is kind of crazy. And then I've got another submission in 2 weeks time as well, which once again I bring you guys along with me, and I'm going to get myself into bed. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you got a good insight into my portfolio and my submission. And yeah, thank you so much for watching the video guys. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Peace.